My parents left me a worthless painting while giving my brother the fortune, but I found the secret numbers behind it, and my family's empire collapsed. The day of my parents' will reading dawned bright and cold. Sunlight streamed through the mahogany-paneled windows of Wilson and Associates' law office. I sat quietly in the corner, watching my brother, Mark, strut around the room in his tailored suit, already acting like he owned everything in sight, which, if I was being honest with myself, he probably did. "Miss Sarah Bennett," the lawyer's voice cut through my thoughts. "Are you ready to proceed?" I nodded, gripping the arms of my leather chair. At 32, I was about to find out what my parents really thought of me, though I already had a pretty good idea. The constant comparisons to Marcus throughout our lives had made that painfully clear. Mr. Wilson adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and began reading, "To our son, Marcus, for his unfailing dedication to the family business and maintaining the Bennett legacy." He went on to list assets that made my head spin: the family estate in Vermont, our summer house in the Hamptons, controlling shares in Bennett Industries, and a portfolio worth millions. Marcus's smirk grew with each item. Then came my part. "To our daughter, Sarah." Mr. Wilson paused, shuffling his papers. "We leave the painting in Autumn twilight, currently hanging in the study of our main residence." The room fell silent. Marcus didn't even try to hide his laughter. "A painting?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just a painting?" "It was your mother's favorite," Mr. Wilson offered weakly, clearly uncomfortable with the disparity. Marcus walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder, his grip just tight enough to hurt. "Don't worry, sis," he said. "I'll make sure you get a good job in the company, maybe in the mailroom." I shrugged off his hand and stood up. The Bennett family fortune, built over 3 generations, now belonged entirely to my brother. All I had was a single painting that my mother had bought at some small gallery years ago. I'd always thought it was pretty. A forest scene at dusk with strange geometric shapes hidden among the trees, but it wasn't exactly a fair inheritance. "Is that all?" I asked Mr. Wilson. He nodded sympathetically. "The painting must be collected within 7 days." I left without another word, ignoring Marcus's calls behind me. The drive to my parents' house, now Marcus's house, felt surreal. The guards at the gate gave me suspicious looks, but let me through when I explained about the painting. Inside, the housekeeper, Margaret, met me with tears in her eyes. "Oh, Miss Sarah," she whispered, hugging me tightly. "It's not right what they did to you." I hugged her back, fighting my own tears. Margaret had been more of a mother to me than my own mother sometimes. She helped me take down the painting from the study wall, carefully wrapping it in a blanket. "Your mother used to stare at this for hours," Margaret said softly, "especially in the last few months. Sometimes she'd mutter about numbers and patterns. We thought the illness was making her confused." I looked at the painting more closely in the fading light of the study. The geometric shape seemed to shift and change, creating patterns I'd never noticed before. "Numbers?" I asked. Margaret nodded. She traced the shapes with her fingers over and over. Mr. Bennett would get so angry about it. That night, in my small apartment across town, I hung the painting on my living room wall. It was beautiful in its own way. The forest scene was painted with incredible detail, each leaf and branch precisely rendered, but those geometric shapes, they didn't quite fit with the natural elements. They seemed almost deliberate, like they were trying to tell me something. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch, staring at the painting. My mother's final gift to me. Was it really just a cruel joke? A final reminder that I'd never measure up to Marcus, or was there something more? My phone buzzed. Marcus calling again. I ignored it, like I had his last 5 calls. He probably wanted to gloat more or maybe offer me that mailroom position. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching the painting, An Autumn Twilight, by an artist named James Morrison. No major exhibitions, no auction records, barely any online presence at all. The gallery where my mother bought it had closed years ago. It was like the painting had appeared out of nowhere. A text from Marcus popped up. "Don't be bitter, sis. Come work for me." "It's what Mom and Dad would have wanted," I snorted. What my parents had wanted was for me to be more like Marcus, to care about profit margins and shareholders instead of pursuing my passion for art history and restoration. I disappointed them by choosing my own path, and now they'd made their feelings crystal clear. But something about the painting kept drawing my attention. Those shapes. They reminded me of something I'd studied in my art restoration courses, steganography, the practice of hiding messages in plain sight. I got up and examined the painting more closely. The geometric shapes were subtly different colors than the rest of the scene, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it, and they seemed to form a pattern. A knock at my door made me jump. It was past midnight. Who would be visiting at this hour? Through the peephole I saw Marcus standing there, his usually perfect hair disheveled. "Sarah," he called out, "open up. We need to talk about the painting." I stayed silent, watching him through the peephole. He'd never shown any interest in art before. Why was he here now, in the middle of the night, asking about a supposedly worthless painting? "Sarah, please." His voice took on an edge of desperation I'd never heard before. "Mom left instructions about the painting. You need to give it back." Instructions? My heart started pounding. Maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe there really was something hidden in those geometric shapes. "Go away, Marcus," I called through the door. "The painting is mine. It's all I got, remember? You don't understand," he hissed. "That painting, it's not what you think. Give it to me now, and I'll give you $5 million. $5 million for a painting he'd laughed about just hours ago? I backed away from the door, my mind racing. Marcus was many things, but he wasn't stupid with money. If he was offering that much, the painting must be worth far more. I heard him fumbling with something. Keys? Did he still have a copy of my spare key from when I'd been sick last year? I quickly grabbed the painting off the wall and ran to my bedroom, locking the door behind me just as I heard my front door open. "Sarah," Marcus's voice echoed through my apartment. "Where are you? Where's the painting?" I held the painting close, my hands shaking. In the dim light of my bedroom, those geometric shapes seemed to glow faintly, and then I saw it, a pattern I'd missed before. The shapes weren't random at all. They formed numbers, hidden so cleverly in the forest scene that you'd never notice unless you knew exactly what to look for. "Sarah," Marcus was getting closer, "think about what you're doing. That painting is worth more than you can imagine." I turned the painting over, inspecting the back. The original canvas was professionally mounted, but something about the framing felt off, a slight gap that shouldn't be there. My bedroom door handle jiggled. "Sarah, open this door right now." With trembling fingers, I pried at the gap in the frame. A small piece of paper fluttered out, covered in my mother's elegant handwriting. As I read the first line, my breath caught in my throat. "My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, you've discovered what I always knew you would. You see patterns others miss. You question what others accept. And now, my darling girl, you're about to understand why your father and brother have always been so afraid of you." The pounding on my bedroom door grew louder, but I barely heard it. I was too busy reading my mother's letter, my hands shaking as each word revealed a truth that would change everything. The numbers in the painting weren't just random shapes. They were coordinates, accounts, and passwords to something that would shake the very foundation of Bennett Industries. And my brother, still shouting outside my door, had no idea that his perfect world was about to crumble. I don't know how long I sat there on my bedroom floor, reading and rereading my mother's letter, while Marcus continued his tirade outside. My hands trembled as I absorbed each carefully written word. The numbers in the painting, when combined with the access codes I've included here, will lead you to the truth about Bennett Industries. Your father and brother built their empire on stolen innovations, patents, and designs taken from brilliant minds who trusted them. I was one of those minds, Sarah, and you, my dear daughter, were always meant to be my successor. A loud crash from my living room jolted me back to reality. Marcus had apparently gotten tired of asking nicely. "I'm calling the police," I shouted, already dialing 911. "Go ahead," Marcus yelled back. "I'll tell them you stole company property. That painting belongs to Bennett Industries." But I knew better now. The letter explained everything. How my mother had been a brilliant inventor in her own right. How she'd hidden her work in plain sight all these years. The painting wasn't just art. It was a key to a hidden database of evidence. "The coordinates will lead you to my private laboratory," the letter continued. "Everything you need is there. But be careful, Sarah. Your father and brother will do anything to keep their secrets buried." I heard Marcus's footsteps retreating. followed by my front door slamming. Taking a deep breath, I emerged from my bedroom. My apartment was a mess. Marcus had apparently searched every corner looking for the painting. But I didn't care about the chaos. I had work to do. First, I photographed every inch of the painting, capturing the geometric shapes from every angle. Then I carefully copied down the coordinates from my mother's letter. According to her instructions, I needed to overlay the shapes in a specific sequence to reveal the full set of access codes. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Margaret, our old housekeeper. "Miss Sarah, men are at the house, removing all your mother's things. They're looking for something in her study. Please be careful." They were destroying evidence. I had to move fast. The coordinates led to a location in the Berkshires, about 3 hours from the city. My mother had written that she purchased the property under her maiden name, keeping it hidden from my father and brother. "The lab is underground," her letter explained. "The entrance looks like an old storm cellar, but it's equipped with state-of-the-art security. Use the first sequence of numbers from the painting to gain access." I packed quickly, laptop, the painting carefully wrapped in blankets, some clothes, and my mother's letter. As I headed to my car, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street, its engine running. Marcus wasn't done yet. The drive to the Berkshires was tense. The SUV followed me for the first hour, keeping a consistent distance. I took every detour and back road I could think of, finally losing them somewhere near the Massachusetts border. By the time I reached the coordinates, it was nearly dawn. The property looked abandoned at first glance, just an overgrown field with an old farmhouse in severe disrepair. But as I walked the grounds, comparing the geometric shapes in the painting to the natural landscape, I realized my mother's genius. The shapes weren't just numbers, they were a map. The seemingly random patterns of trees and rocks matched the artwork perfectly. The storm cellar was exactly where the painting indicated, its rusted doors looking like they hadn't been opened in decades. But when I input the first sequence into a hidden keypad, they smoothly swung open to reveal a staircase descending into darkness. Motion sensor lights flickered on as I made my way down. The temperature dropped with each step, and I could hear the soft hum of ventilation systems. At the bottom, another keypad waited. This time, I needed to use the second sequence from the painting. The laboratory that emerged from the darkness took my breath away. It was like stepping into a different world, pristine white walls, advanced equipment, and rows of computers humming quietly. But what caught my eye was the wall of patents and prototypes, dozens of innovations that I recognized from Bennett Industries products, but with one crucial difference: they all bore my mother's original signature. "Oh my God," I whispered, moving closer to examine them. These weren't just similar to Bennett Industries technology, they were the originals. My mother hadn't just been a passive observer in the company, she had been its hidden genius. A familiar voice behind me made my blood run cold. "Impressive, isn't it?" I spun around to find my father standing in the doorway, looking exactly as he had the day he died, or at least the day we thought he died. Marcus stood beside him, a satisfied smirk on his face. "Did you really think your mother was the only one who knew about this place?" my father asked, stepping into the lab. Though I must admit, hiding the coordinates in that painting was clever. "We've been searching for this facility for months." I backed away, clutching my mother's letter. "You're supposed to be dead." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sometimes the best way to find something is to make people stop looking for it. Your mother's death was unfortunately real, but mine, well, let's just say it served its purpose. The will reading was a trap, I realized. You wanted me to find the painting. We needed you to lead us here," Marcus explained, moving to block the exit. "Mom changed all the security protocols before she died. We couldn't get in without the codes. And now," my father said, advancing slowly, "you're going to help us destroy everything in this lab. All evidence of your mother's work will disappear, and Bennett Industries' patents will remain secure." But they had made one crucial mistake. While they were talking, I had been backing toward my mother's main workstation. Her letter had mentioned an emergency protocol, a sequence of numbers that would activate something she called the Clarity Protocol. "Actually," I said, reaching behind me to input the sequence, "I don't think I will." The lab's lights suddenly shifted to a pulsing red, and a computerized voice announced, "Clarity Protocol activated. broadcasting evidence to all major news outlets and regulatory agencies. Deletion impossible. My father's face contorted with rage. What have you done? Mom called it her insurance policy, I said, feeling stronger with each word. Every piece of evidence in this lab has just been transmitted to hundreds of secure locations. Patents, proof of theft, fraudulent documents, everything. Bennett Industries is about to face some very uncomfortable questions. Marcus lunged forward, but it was too late. Alarms began blaring, and the lab's security systems activated, sealing all exits. We were locked in together with the truth that would destroy their empire. She knew, I continued, watching their faces pale. She knew you would try to bury her contributions, just like you buried her innovations, so she made sure the truth would come out, one way or another. Through the lab's small windows, I could see police lights approaching. Someone, probably the lab's security system, had alerted local authorities. My father and Marcus exchanged panicked looks as the sound of sirens grew closer. The painting that had started everything still sat wrapped in blankets by the door. Those seemingly worthless geometric shapes had led me exactly where I needed to go. My mother's final gift wasn't just a painting, it was justice. And as I watched my father and brother realize their perfect world was crumbling, I smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. The real story of Bennett Industries was about to be told, and this time, no one would be able to hide the truth. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of police statements, news reports, and corporate chaos. I watched from my hotel room as Bennett Industries' stock plummeted, years of carefully constructed lies unraveling in real time. Bennett Ind. CEO found alive, arrested for fraud, the headlines screamed. Corporate giant built on stolen patents, mother's revenge, the hidden genius behind Bennett Tech. My phone hadn't stopped ringing since the story broke. Journalists, lawyers, former employees, everyone wanted to hear my side of the story. But I was only interested in one call, Margaret, our former housekeeper, who had more revelations to share. Your mother knew this day would come, she told me, her voice heavy with emotion. That's why she made me promise to give you this after the truth came out. An hour later, I sat in Margaret's small living room, holding another letter from my mother. This one was different, not instructions or coordinates, but a story, her story. My dearest Sarah, it began. Now that you know the truth about Bennett Industries, it's time you understood your own history. You were never less than your brother. You were always meant for something more. As I read, the pieces of my life slowly shifted into focus. My mother hadn't been just another victim of my father's schemes. She had been playing a long game, preparing me for this moment from the very beginning. Those art history classes I'd taken, they weren't a waste of time, as my father had claimed. They had trained my eye to spot patterns, to understand hidden meanings in plain sight. My work in restoration had taught me patience, precision, and the ability to reconstruct truth from fragments. Every time your father pushed you away from the business, my mother wrote, every time he favored Marcus, he was unknowingly helping to prepare you for this moment. You learned to think differently, to see what others missed. While Marcus was learning to maintain the lies, you were learning to expose them. A knock at Margaret's door interrupted my reading. A woman in a crisp suit stood outside, holding a briefcase. Miss Bennett? I'm Alexandra Chin from the SEC. We need to discuss your mother's patents. The next few hours were a crash course in just how extensive my mother's preparations had been. She hadn't just documented the stolen patents, she had continued inventing, working in secret in her underground lab. The painting's coordinates had led not only to evidence of past theft, but to innovations that could transform the industry. Your mother filed these patents under a trust, Alexandra explained, spreading documents across Margaret's coffee table. A trust that names you as the sole beneficiary. My hands trembled as I looked at the paperwork. Dozens of patents, all legally protected, all now belonging to me. Not just the old innovations my father had stolen, but new ones, years ahead of current technology. Bennett Industries doesn't just owe you restitution for the stolen patents, Alexandra continued. They've built their entire infrastructure around your mother's technology. They can't operate without it. So what does that mean? I asked, though I was beginning to understand. It means, Miss Bennett, that you now effectively control the company that cast you aside. While my father and Marcus sat in jail awaiting trial, I walked into Bennett Industries headquarters the next morning, not as the forgotten daughter but as its new owner. The board of directors, desperate to save the company from complete collapse, had no choice but to accept my terms. Standing in my father's former office, I found another surprise, a wall safe hidden behind the painting that had once hung there. The combination? The final sequence of numbers from my mother's painting. Inside was a personal diary detailing every innovation he had stolen, every inventor he had betrayed. But more importantly, it contained a list of names, people like my mother who had been cheated out of their rightful recognition. 1 month later, I stood on a stage at a hastily convened press conference, announcing the company's new direction. Bennett Industries was built on stolen dreams, I told the assembled crowd. Today, we begin making things right. We're establishing a foundation to compensate every inventor who was wronged by the previous management. But more than that, we're transforming the company into what it should have been all along, an incubator for innovation, where brilliant minds are celebrated, not exploited. The painting that started it all now hangs in my new office, a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things are hidden in plain sight. The geometric shapes that once concealed my mother's secret now represent something else, the pattern of a better future, one built on truth instead of lies. Marcus wrote to me from prison, alternating between threats and pleas for help. I sent back a single photograph, the painting, now hanging exactly where our father's portrait used to be. He would understand the message. His world of deception was over. My father maintained his silence, but it didn't matter anymore. The truth he had fought so hard to bury was now his legacy. The great John Bennett would be remembered not as a visionary businessman, but as a thief who stole his own wife's genius. Late one evening, as I was preparing to leave the office, Margaret brought me one final letter from my mother. This one had been timed to arrive exactly 1 month after the company's transformation began. My darling Sarah, it read, if you're reading this, you've done more than just expose the truth. You've begun to rebuild from the ashes of deception. I never wanted you to inherit a corrupt empire. I wanted you to have the chance to build something honest, something worthy of your heart. I traced my fingers over her handwriting, feeling closer to her than ever before. The worthless painting had been anything but worthless. It had been the key to everything. More than that, it had been my mother's way of showing me that I had inherited something far more valuable than money or status. I had inherited her vision for a better world. 2 years later, Bennett Industries, now renamed Aurora Innovations, is unrecognizable from what it once was. We've become a leader not just in technology, but in ethical business practices. The foundation has helped dozens of inventors reclaim their stolen innovations, and our incubator program has launched countless new careers. The painting still hangs in my office, its geometric shapes now a familiar comfort. Sometimes, late at night, I could swear they shift slightly, as if my mother is still there, leaving me new patterns to unravel, new truths to discover. But the most important truth was there all along, hidden in plain sight, just like those numbers. Success built on lies will always crumble, but success built on truth and justice will stand the test of time. Marcus was released from prison last week. He sent me a message asking to meet, to talk about rebuilding our family. I haven't responded yet. Some patterns I've learned are better left unchanged. Instead, I spend my time focusing on the future. The company hosts an annual innovation fair, where young inventors can showcase their ideas without fear of theft. Last year's winner was a young woman whose story reminded me of my mother, brilliant, underestimated, but unwavering in her vision. As I handed her the award, I saw my mother's painting reflected in the glass trophy. The geometric shapes seemed to dance with approval, reminding me that sometimes the greatest inheritances aren't the ones we can hold in our hands, but the ones that transform us from within. The worthless painting had given me something priceless, the truth about my past, control of my future, and, most importantly, the chance to ensure that no other brilliant mind would ever be silenced or stolen from again. And that, I know, would make my mother prouder than any fortune ever could.